You can acknowledge someone's humanity while also acknowledging the fact that they are a shitty person. Like,
Yeah,
those things can exist. Like, it's not. I feel like a lot of people, especially, they're kind of like, oh, this trans person said a racist thing, so I'm going to use the wrong pronouns. Like, that's not how it works. You still have to use the correct pronouns, and you can do that while calling them out for whatever they did. You
right.
can't strip away someone's humanity as
Yeah,
punishment. Like, that's not how it works. For me, an ally is someone who can acknowledge someone else's humanity without letting their personal opinions get in the way.
that's what's up. All right, welcome to another episode of Taboo Talks. And this time, this one should be episode 9. And this time, I have another awesome friend, another awesome guest. Their name is Joyce Guo. Um, so, Joyce, before we even continue, what do you still use other pronouns besides they?
Yes, I use she, her, and they, them pronouns.
Yeah, okay, so we were just talking about like school, COVID-19, Corona things, moving back. How is that going on for you? Because this is a, okay, so this is your last semester, as far as I know. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm getting old. My memory's like, yeah. So how's this semester, especially with like COVID?
Um, it's like weird, I think. Like, I had a weird feeling about this entire senior year. Like, I remember coming in like the beginning of fall semester, and I was like, I have a weird feeling about this. I thought just being paranoid because I do
Uh-huh.
that. I tend to like jump to conclusions stuff. I've
Right.
never been wrong though, so I don't know why I keep doubting myself. But I was like, whatever. It's just my senior year. I'm just freaking it. But then this like COVID stuff happened, and I was like, oh, okay. And then like it was getting worse, and I was already stressed out because it's like my final semester, and I want to go into grad school. So I was like, hee hee, my grades. and, but also like I'm the president of two student orgs, so I had to like deal with that
Yeah.
too. And I was like,
Yeah.
I don't think it's responsible of us to have student meetings with all this happening. And so like we canceled
Mm-hmm.
our meetings way before the school had a formal announcement because we were like, this is
Oh wow. Yo, props,
uh,
man.
yeah, we were like, that'd be irresponsible of us. And so we canceled meetings.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my mom was like, you should just move back because I don't think your school's going to reopen. And I was like, okay, I'll just move back.
Yeah.
Um, I guess I'm kind of lucky though because three of my classes were already online classes. I don't like the classes.
Oh.
it made it made the transition easier because I was already used to
Yeah.
like doing the online like Canvas thing. Um, but part of me wishes I just stayed doing creative writing classes because this semester I'm in a bunch of like social science classes,
Oh
which would be
man.
fine, but it's my last semester and I just don't have a brain power for it, you know? Like you want me
Yeah.
to talk about economics in this economy?
I mean, props to you guys that that you guys did stop earlier than the quarantine happened for Colombia at least. Um. Oh yeah. Also, where Joyce is going is where I went to, and a bunch of other people that I've had on the podcast come to, Columbia College Chicago. Don't get that confused for Columbia University in New York. Totally different. But yeah, Columbia College it's an art school. Um, and I don't know. I liked my time there. Other people, you might have a different say, Joyce. Um,
It's
we've definitely gone through a lot of hurdles over there. That's for sure. But I liked my overall, like, in the grand scheme of things, like, I enjoyed it. So we're both artists, everybody listening in. And Joyce is a literary artist, and we've done a couple of things together. We've done a lot of things together,
Yeah.
actually. Um, Dude, I remember what was the first time we ever recorded something was back in the apartment. It was like I had to makeshift everything up. Like I have better equipment now for sure. And like, dude, when I finished recording you that day, and like always, and every time after I was editing your vocals and stuff, I kept listening to it, and I was like, why does it sound like your voice is going from the left side to the right side sometimes? It's like it's bouncing back and forth, and it's annoying the heck out of me. Like, why? I realized that it was the mic, obviously, but I was like, why is it doing that? Because it's not supposed to go like from left to right or right to left. Such a travesty those days for me. Huh? Huh?
It was fun though. It was
They were
nice.
fun.
Yeah.
So when am I gonna, come out to California? No, just kidding. I mean, with the with the tickets being cheap right now, domestic flights are not canceled. No, I'm playing. Dude, I'm more afraid of getting jumped than rather getting infected. Like, on
Yeah.
the high key, low key.
Yeah. It was easy to like make jokes about it when things first started happening because like I'm used to being harassed and stuff, especially at airports. So I was like,
Right.
ah, ha ha, like white people are just being dumb. But like it got worse, and I was like,
Yeah.
"Ugh."
Also because you're actually Chinese.
Yeah, okay.
Not
Okay, no, it's
not.
funny because when this first happened and I found it, it was called the coronavirus.
Oh
I was on
yeah.
the couch and I sat there and I was like, because I'm Chinese and the
Yeah.
city that I'm from is called Corona.
Wait, in Cali? What the heck? That's crazy.
You can Google map right now, Corona, California. That's the place I'm from. That's where I am right now in this moment. So when I found
What?
out, I sat there and I was like, huh, I'm a Chinese person from Corona, California.
Dude, man, the cards just were not in your favor on that one.
Yeah.
Dude, yeah. Wait, do you have any stories on that? Like, about your experience so far in the public?
Most of my COVID stories are in Chicago and the airport just because like since coming back here I haven't gone out. Because my
Oh,
parents were immediately like, no, stay. Like I think we've been quarantining like before anything was like announced because my parents,
oh, yeah,
you know Asian parents.
yeah, yeah.
um and so like I got people were like weird at like the airports. They were kind of staying away. I thought it was funny because for the first time in like forever, no one like bothered me.
You
Like
finally got
everyone,
what you wanted.
like, literally, I was like, finally, no one's talking to me. There aren't like people like there are people like looking at me weird, but it's whatever. Like I didn't have
Yeah,
weird white men being like, "Oh, sweetheart," and
right.
so I was like, okay, like there's no like verbal harassment. But like in Chicago, like if I was like walking or whatever, people would like go out of their way to avoid me. Like
Like
I
on the street or anywhere.
yeah, yeah, like on the street, like if we were like walking towards each other, they would like do like a
I
round, and it's
like an
like
arc,
yeah, and it's like okay,
man.
which like it's like funny because okay, like easier for me to get to class. I can just walk, you know?
Right. You're
Walk.
like you're like, thank you, Moses. Thank you for parting the Red Sea. Thank you for parting the Red Sea. Thank you.
Literally, I think I made that exact joke. I was like, that's
Dude.
funny, but like the reality of it is so sad because like it's happened to me a few times before, so I wasn't like surprised.
Right.
but it this time it was like every single time, you know? So it was like,
Yeah. Man, what can you do? Honestly, you can't change people, and I don't know about you, but I definitely fear random people and their like fantasies versus like the actual infection. But that's just me. So I don't I feel like everybody's been talking about COVID a lot. Honestly, especially at this current time, I feel like creators, if they weren't in on doing like news reports or like reflections on Corona or COVID-19, if they weren't doing that like 2 weeks ago, they're definitely doing a lot now. And so everything I see, especially from Asian American create content creators, a lot of it is just like, how do we handle COVID-19? Like, what's the newest update on Corona? And like, yada, 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 yada. And so, I don't want to dwell too much on this because there's so much out there already. Um,
yeah.
and, but anyways, let's get into the real topic. Um, okay, so y'all, so Joyce is the president of two organizations over at Columbia. I don't know what the queer one is called anymore, but
You know what? That's fair. That's fair.
but she is the president of ASO, Asian Sport Organization, and what is the other one?
It's Columbia Pride. Okay,
Wait,
so
was that
funny story.
wait?
Funny story. Okay, so you remember Common Ground, right?
Yeah, I remember Common
And
Ground,
I
and
was a
then it
part of it
changed
my freshman
to
year, and it
yeah, didn't
changed to Columbia Pride. But I broke off my freshman year because I was like, y'all are way too white, and I'm not here for it. So me and
yeah,
Rowan, we started Queer and, but
yeah,
it was very difficult because Rowan was very, very busy and Jude was also very busy. And so the two of them couldn't exactly help me
right,
and stuff. So I
uh
ended up
huh,
doing everything,
uh
which
huh.
I'm sure you remember because I think you were still,
I was still there for Queer and so
yeah. So you probably remember me being like insane and stressed. But
yeah,
um, so we did that for a year and I was like, I can't do it anymore. And so, but it was fine because Columbia Pride, that Ebor, a lot of people and a lot of people were graduating.
right,
And long story short, it sort of fell apart. It was really sad. Because my junior year, it like basically did not exist anymore. And it was like, you know, but then I was like, hee hee. And I like jumped in and I talked to Matthew Reilly. Yeah, they're the advisor for the Pride organization, but they're also they're a staff member in the office now. And so I
okay,
talked to them and I was like, hey, I want to be in on this. And then so I was like president because I technically had like the requirements to be president. And then
right,
I got
okay.
an e-board together. And so we brought it back. So now it's back.
Hey, okay, that's what's up.
And that means I won in the
Yeah.
end.
Wait. So what happened to Queer and? What happened to Queer and?
I we ended up sort of just combining it, like the
Okay.
values we had with queer and like making sure that there was always the intersection of like race and class and ability and da, da,
Mm,
da, and all of that in our stuff. We just
mm-hmm.
made sure that it stayed when we restarted Columbia. It made
Columbia
more
Pride.
sense. Yeah, it made more sense to just have one queer organization because it was kind of weird having two separate ones. And then
Yeah.
Pride sort of had like a reputation on campus with the old crowd, with it
Facts.
being like
Facts.
very white focused. Like that's just how it's always been, apparently, even before we got there. And
Yeah.
so this new crowd, it's like I'm the only one that remembers all the old stuff. I'm
I
the only one.
I am the bookkeeper. I remember
Literally.
before it all
So
went to
I'm
shit.
I'm like the only one that remembers like old Columbia and like the old office and
Yeah.
like the old orgs.
Oh my gosh,
And so
yeah.
that means my e-board, like they only know this, and all the general members, they
Oh,
only know this. Which is honestly, I'm kind of happy
wow.
for Pride at
You
least.
like you legit like Thanos did the right way.
I
You
was like,
didn't wipe out. Yeah, except instead of like but you got the end game result one, not the Infinity War. Yeah. You basically wiped out all the whole universe and was like, let's start from scratch. And nobody remembers the old world and they're grateful for it.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
No, but yeah, that's a nice sentiment though. That the thing about leadership, and I kind of want to. I do want to put this within the Asian community perspective too, but definitely let's start with the queer community first, right? So, one thing uh, that I've something that I've always like kind of seen when I was at Columbia, or at least really heavily involved in some queer community that I was in proximity to, was that there's a lot of variations of types of people and personalities, and because we all come from different backgrounds, and that's heavily influenced by like our class in society. I think something to really note that for people listening into is that like this is not just for the queer community, but it's kind of like similar across all movements. This idea of, or the idea of white supremacy, basically, where or white privilege, I think is a better way of saying it. That a lot of groups that are formed are formed to, or a lot of groups that are formed and maintained or preserved across time generally are the ones formed by people who are white in this country, and asterisks in this country. And so, but then again, that always puts their agenda first, just because, again, they started the group for the people who were like them, and people who are like them also include being white, and whatever other intersectionality that they had. So, with the new transition to your Columbia Pride now, and like what it was before, and being a figurehead and a leader in that community, with that comes a lot of hardships because of the types of people. And so I kind of just like, how was it for you kind of like navigating those waters, and like what are like descriptions of types of people that you've come across?
Um, as a leader, I just wanted to make sure that general members felt listened to, like no matter what. And so a lot of our meetings revolved around what they wanted to do. And so at the end of every meeting, we'd be like, this is what we have planned for next week. But if you guys want to do something else, like if y'all want to like go out and like go do an activity, or we can like do whatever, then we can do
Mm.
that. It's really just up to whatever y'all want to do. Um, and usually people were okay with like staying in and doing activities like in the office, just because like it was weirdly cold. um,
Yeah.
but we had plans to like go to Genevieve's Bakery, and we had plans to do
Yeah.
like field trips to like museums, and we had plans to like go get food together. Um, and we were gonna do that like I think this semester, just because we would have had more time to plan, and we wanted this semester to not be so dense with discussion and stuff, just because spring semester tends to be hard on a lot of people. Um,
Yeah.
and
Facts.
I think part of the reason why I decided to run Pride like that was just because one of the problems I had before was that I never really felt listened to. Even when I was on a board for like the old
R-
Pride, I felt like
Right.
I was struggling to have my voice be heard. Or if I was acknowledged, then it was immediately sort of dismissed. And I was like,
Mm.
that feels like shit.
Yeah.
And so I didn't want general members to feel like I wanted them to feel like they had just as much voice and just as much control over what the organization did, but without the responsibility of having to fill out the paperwork that comes with eBoard.
Yeah.
Um, and so, yeah, I just wanted to make sure everyone felt equal, I guess. I wanted it to feel like we were Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, you know?
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. I feel that. I feel that. I respect that too. But obviously, people, okay, so like definitely even for me, like, people coming in, they have different types of like personalities that are definitely harder to work with. So like how did you navigate that, you know?
We sort of set rules immediately. So a flaw that a lot of organizations at Columbia has is that, or Columbia in general, they
Yeah.
play very much into respectability politics. Their whole deal is like, oh, I want everyone to feel welcome. But then with that, they mean like, if someone's being racist, educate them instead of being like, we're not going to tolerate this. And so at the beginning of like nearly every single meeting, especially meetings that were going to be focused on discussions, I would be
Right.
like, okay, please feel like welcome and encouraged to like say whatever it is you have to say. But keep in mind, if you say some racist shit, if you say some bigoted shit, that's like zero tolerance. I'm going to kick you out. Like, full disclosure, as president, I'm going to like personally walk you out the door if you say something stupid. And it's not going to be like, oh, this is a learning moment. No, we're not here to like educate you on basic things like don't be racist, you know?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
Especially as like a college organization. I feel like if you're coming into college and you don't know racism bad, there's only so much I can do for you, you know? Like there's only so many ways I can say, hey, don't be racist, you know? There's only
I
so many
feel.
ways I can say, don't be transphobic, don't be homophobic, don't be an asshole.
Mm.
And so we early on established like this is zero tolerance. We're not going to baby you, we're not going to emphasize you, we're not going to play around and act like it's okay for you to act stupid just so you can say things that are very harmful to people.
Yeah.
And most people at both ASO and Pride, they were on board with it and they were all really thankful about it because I think a lot of people were sick of the whole like this is a learning moment sort of bullshit. A lot of like professors even sort of play in at classes.
Yeah.
Um, but because I was so harsh about it, anyone who didn't want to come back the next week, then they knew the kind of club that we were running and they wouldn't have to waste their time. They wouldn't have to waste my time. And it just sort of
Mm.
worked out.
So, politics, right? Or being PC, like respectability things. I actually just came across something that was like uh toxic positivity.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Wait, what do you have to say about that?
it's interesting. I didn't realize, well, I had come across it like a while ago. And so I had known the term about it for a while, but I think I was always aware of it. It's something a lot of people fall into without realizing. Like if I if I approach someone and I'm like, I'm having a really stressful time, blah 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 blah, and then the only thing they have to say is like,
Don't worry
it'll be
about
fine.
it.
It'll
Yeah.
be fine. And it's like, okay, I understand like where you're coming from and like I get like what you're trying to like send to me vibe wise,
Right.
but like if I'm like, oh, I'm having a really hard time with my classes, I don't want to hear it'll be fine. Like yeah, no shit, it'll be fine. It's a class. Like, okay, but you can be like, do you want advice? Do you just want a listening ear? it doesn't have to be like positivity that doesn't put like the context of a situation in play, you know?
Yeah. So I totally I'm like on your wavelength there. Like I'd never really just called it toxic positivity though. I just felt like I felt like it was just more of an emphatic thing. Like 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 it's kind of like so this is like but it comes from a very personal place. So like I don't really when I tell like when I kind of like rant to people, I just need to like rant. Right? There's times when you just need a rant and you don't want anybody to give you advice. You just want to like say your piece and just be done with it.
I just want to be
And I'm
mad.
yeah, and so like but you know like when you but I feel like it's like a a the norm reaction to be like, oh, like to give advice. And it's just like, I just wanted to like rant and just like tell you my problems. But then again, it's just me because I'm super introspective and like I already think about it like a billion times a day kind of a thing. And so, like,
Yeah,
so I kind of already know my solution, but I just want to like, oh, just
yeah.
complain about it. So when people do like complain to me, I tend to just like listen and be like, okay, that's cool. Like, hey, you take your time to like do you, you know? And I'm just like listening and absorbing because yeah.
Vibing.
But yeah. And I mean, sometimes people do want advice, so I always try to clarify that at first. Obviously, I am definitely not authorized or the best at all with helping people in general. um, but but I definitely try my best. And um, but yeah, toxic positivity. I came across that and I was like, yo, I feel that like because people. I mean, think about it. Like people are just like you're going through a negative time. You don't want to hear like I mean, an extreme example like your grandparent just died and somebody comes up to you and be like, don't worry, they're off to a better place now. It's just like, bro,
Like, I don't want to
what?
hear that though, bro.
Yeah, it's like you don't look, just stop. Like, don't tell me, yeah. And so I totally get that, and I think that's like one of the a pretty good example of toxic positivity. Um, but also with term in terms of like terminology, like right being politically correct, I feel like it's becoming this. It's it's a machine that's starting to become too good of a machine. I don't know. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, I get that. I don't like the term politically politically correct or PC because typically like when I come across it, it's being used by people who like they're complaining because they were called out for something, you know? Like they're
Yeah.
kind of like, oh, like it's so hard being a comedian now because you have to be PC. It's like, well, I'm just asking you to not be racist. Like I don't
Yeah.
that's not political correctness. That's just can you be a decent person? Like can you make humor without making fun of people of color or are you just not a funny person, you know? Like,
Yeah.
um and so I don't really like that term because it tends to be like people who are just complaining about being called out for things that they should be called out for.
But like for terminology, like speaking wise, I mean, uh, just like disregarding the word PC, like I feel like in terms of terminology, things are. I think it's a benefit to have a lot more terms being created for sure and phrases, but I also think that it's like a double-edged sword, definitely. Um, yeah, I don't know. What do you think? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I feel that. I feel like politically, especially like in our government, um, political parties are very good at using specific words to like mask what they mean.
Mm.
This was I like just did a lesson about this in one of my classes, but it's about how like a phrase that we throw around is like the war on terror or the war on terrorism, and it's like, well,
Yeah.
terror is a concept. You can't shoot a concept, like you can't bomb a concept, but you
Yeah.
can bomb people and places. But if you say it's a war on people, people will be like, oh no. But if you say that it's a war on terrorism, then people are like, oh wow, wow, we're so great, Um, you can't say you
Yeah.
want to purposely put black and brown people in jail, but you can say that you want a war on drugs and then purposely flood black and brown neighborhoods with
Mm.
drugs and then incarcerate them. If
Yeah.
you call United States soldiers freedom fighters, then subconsciously you're setting us up as the good guys of a movie. And if you call
Mm-hmm.
the other side terrorists, then they're the bad guys. When in reality,
Right.
it's not that clean cut. And so
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
way words are used, it's really powerful. And like as a writer, it's easy for me to like see these things because I think so much in terms of like words. Like I don't really think in images, I think in words. And so it's easy for me to pick things out like that.
Hmm.
But it's a lot harder for people who don't spend too much time thinking about language fall into traps like that. And it's not a bad thing to not realize because they purposely make things confusing so you don't get it. But then you realize it and you're like, huh? whoa. Like so much of the political language, like surrounding politics and the government and just like our lives in general is just they're using pretty words to mask like a really really scary and like bad thing that they're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I kind of want to get take this to the realm of like keep like online, not just like to get away from like the very very tippy top echelon of people creating these terms. I don't know how else to say it, but um like so there's like everyday people like for example like Twitter is like a rabbit hole of uh, and Tumblr too, but definitely definitely Twitter. It happens there a lot where people definitely are are what people would call SJWs and I don't even know what's the other faction called, non SJWs I guess, I don't know, or
I
people
don't
who are
know.
anti. People who are just like super anti SJWs. So SJWs, for people who don't know, are social justice warriors, or some people might even call them keyboard warriors. What's another kind of like negatory
I
connotation? I don't know, but there's probably a lot. But the point being is that like I don't really know how a social justice warrior started, but I feel like logically speaking, it probably came from a place of like, hey, let me just like educate you and tell you, yo, this is like humanely disruptive and like toxic um and like it's degrading. And so let me just speak up and defend whoever is this person is getting, whoever the victim is in this situation, right? Um, some people who are trying to defend being the white knight or trying to defend whoever's getting bullied or targeted. Um, I some people, it's kind of like every movement. Every movement starts at a good place and has good intentions, but there are definitely people who take this idea and take it to an extreme, and then people correlate that extreme to that to the whole movement, you know? And so like yeah, I don't know. I kind of just went off right there. I ranted, but Yeah, what are your thoughts on the current dilemma of telling people what's up because we need to, as a society, get past this because we're evolving, um quotes on that as well, um into a species that has become more empathetic.
I think I think the culture surrounding language is interesting. Like I remember when I was like 14 and I was like on Tumblr and this whole like SJW thing was like huge. And it still is. I don't see it as much anymore because I don't have the energy to engage in it as much.
Yeah.
But I remember like when I first saw the term, I didn't understand why it was supposed to be a bad thing. Because I was like,
Yeah.
if you're fighting for social justice, why is that bad? You
Mm-hmm.
know? And then I realized it was the same thing. People are using words and then coding it as something else. Like if I'm calling out Jimothy for being racist, and he's gonna be like, "Oh, you're such an SJW," blah, blah, blah. And it's like, okay, and like I'm calling you out for something. So what if I am? I don't care. But the problem is like there are meanings tied to that term. And so then people are like, well, I don't want to be associated with that. I know a lot of people like, they're like, oh, I don't identify with the word feminist because there are like different things associated with like the word feminist, or
Right. Right.
I don't want to identify with so and so term because of da 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 whatever reasons. And it's like, I get that. I understand. However, if you hide away from a term, then you're not doing anything to help change what the term means. And
Right.
I'm not saying it's anyone's responsibility, but you can't live your life forever running away from things. That's just not
Oh,
that's not possible. Like I've tried. I don't have the stamina for it. Other people might, but at some point you have to stop and smell the roses. Maybe pick some roses, take them home, put them in a vase, admire those roses. But you
yeah.
can't keep running. And it's frustrating because like I'm someone who is very active in social justice circles online because those spaces tend to be much more accessible.
Yeah.
I'm a fat person with a lot of chronic pain. And so I'm a disabled fat person. I can't exactly go out and march. If I stand for too long, my spine screams at me.
Yeah.
And so it's much more accessible for me to like do online activism. But if you tell someone, oh, I'm an online activist, then people immediately are like, oh, you're
You're
lazy.
one of those. Yeah.
Exactly. You're one of those. You're not really doing anything. You're just talking to people online. And it's like, well, you don't realize how large of a space the online community is. I like now that everyone is locked inside, like, what are you guys doing? You're online.
Yeah. Yeah.
How are you communicating people? You're online. How are you getting your news? Online. How are you getting anything about anything? Through the internet. And so people forget like how big of a space the internet is. People forget like how much information you can get from it, how much communication you can get through it. And so there's a lot of disconnect, and I see a lot, especially from people who are able bodied, like they're able to go out and march and whatever. And it's like, okay, great, you can go do that. But at the end of the day, like, where are you doing your rallying? Where are you communicating to people? How are you getting your connects to put together these huge things? Online. And who's helping you do these things? People who are very well versed in online communities and people who know how trends work, people who know how to like get things on other people's pages. If you're not well versed in the online community, I feel like then you're missing a lot of human connection and a lot of human communication, and you're disregarding a big part of like your possible audience, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting. it's it's wild hearing people talk about things they know nothing about, you know?
Yeah. I totally feel you on that last bit that you just said. You know what I also think? I feel that to every movement, there I feel like to have a successful movement. Like to at least so successful meaning like you hit some of the goals that you're trying to get towards, right? You need to have a Martin Luther King and a Malcolm X. I'm dead ass serious. Like, because for a movement to really get somewhere, you need a Malcolm X and a Martin Luther King, meaning that you need some sort of extreme, not like super, super extremist in the movement, but some sort of like greater evil versus the lesser evil, so to speak. Because the movement, if a movement is big enough where it's not going to go away and people are just going to naturally conform to whatever the less extreme version of it really is, like people will adapt to the less extreme version more than the extreme version. um yeah, that's just my 2 cents on that. Like you need a Malcolm X in a movement and you need a Martin Luther King. um Now, that's not to say that both of those figureheads weren't trying to reach the same thing. They just had different methods, right? They had different methodologies on how to get there, and some of the fundamentals they disagreed on, but on the general of things, like yeah, that's just what I think. Yeah, I don't know if you have anything to say on that. You definitely say your piece right now.
Uh,
Or
I always feel like the Luther King and like the Malcolm X like example is funny because people will like bring up race riots and stuff, and then white people are always like, "Well, Martin Luther King said no violence." I was like, "No, he said that if you need to, you could punch a bitch." So, so like the
yeah,
version of like Martin Luther King that is taught to kids is like, oh, like peace, love, happiness, like no violence.
yeah,
Oh. And it's like that's not who he is though. Like that's just not who he
yeah.
was. And so I do agree with what you're saying though, like for a quote unquote successful movement, like people need to see the full range, I guess.
Hmm.
But,
Yeah, yeah, that's a nice way of
but like
putting it.
with more than that, like people need to see the full range and accept that like whether or not you agree with these people, you need to understand they deserve basic humanity and they deserve the rights that come with this humanity. Like if I could joke about white people and that's like whatever, that's funny. Everyone jokes about white people. Or I could be like, I'm going to go guillotine the rich. Obviously, one is more extreme than the other. I could be like a mayonnaise, or I could be like, I'm going to guillotine Jeff Bezos. So it's like it's one or the other, but regardless of the type of person I am, at the end of the day, I deserve my rights as like a fully realized human being.
Hmm. Yeah, I think such a good point too. Like to I and it's really I still haven't found the best way to e- explain that thought process to somebody else. Like how do you explain to somebody that somebody who did the extreme. So like in your example, if I went out and like guillotined the rich, right? How do I deserve that basic human right, you know? Um, and I did it in the name of the movement. And so it's yeah. I don't know, wait, you what are you gonna say? What are you gonna say?
I guess like in the context of like guillotining the rich, the context of it is that like I don't think anyone really should be a billionaire. You don't need that much money.
Uh-huh.
And you only amassed that much money because you are like committing crimes basically like against the people who work for you. Like you're stealing from those people, you're not paying those people like livable wages, You're
Mm-hmm.
being selfish with your money. There are so many like charities and like GoFundMe's or like Kickstarters or whatever that like Jeff Bezos, he could like with pocket change, everything in the world could be fixed, but he's not because rich people are selfish with their money. That's how they stay rich. And so like the phrase like eat the rich or like I'm gonna go guillotine the 1% or whatever, it it comes in the context of like there needs to be something done to redistribute the wealth in these social
Mm-hmm.
classes. Like there's no reason why the top 1% has much more wealth than like the rest of us combined. Like that doesn't make any sense. There's
Mm-hmm.
no reason why they need that money. And if they have that money, why are they not doing anything with it? They're just holding it. They're like ugly little dragons in their shitty little mansions, you know? And they're begging for someone to go stab them and take their gold. Like at this point, I'm like, I'm gonna dress up armor. I'm gonna show up. I'm gonna make a TikTok out of it. I'm gonna go viral. And that's how the revolution's gonna start. Like they're just sitting there on their mounds of gold and they're not doing anything with it, which inherently makes them a bad person because they're saying that like it's more important for me to be rich than for these people to have the basic things they need to live. Like the Flint
Mm-hmm.
water crisis, it could be fixed with like literally pocket change from Jeff Bezos, but he's like, no. And it's like, why is money more important to you than like actual human lives? You know?
Right.
And so
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
if you're doing something to like save people, it's I don't know, it's different. And like that same logic can be used to argue a lot of things. So I hesitate to say it. But I don't know. It depends on the context, I guess is what I'm saying.
For sure. For sure. But yeah. So yeah, just like what you said, it definitely depends on context and it's like it's super, I'm still trying to think of a way of how to really explain that thought in my head of like, okay, even the most undeserving of people still deserve human rights.
Yeah.
um but it's kind of hard to explain that, especially when you know that this person has done like things that don't that you like, you just feel deep down that you like, yeah, this person, they just need to go away, like
Yeah.
dissipate into the air.
Yeah. I think like a good way that like I've made peace with it is like yes, Jeff Bezos is a heinous person who's committed multiple like crimes against humanity, but that does not make him less of a person. And
Yeah.
that doesn't mean I'm going to like if like say if I went and committed heinous crimes, that doesn't make me less of a person. And you should be able to talk about the shitty things I did without bringing up my weight or my race or my gender or my class or my sexuality or any of those
Hmm.
things because I deserve basic human respect as a person,
Hmm.
but you that can exist next to the fact that like I did these horrible things and I deserve to be like punished for those things.
Yeah.
Like bad people are still people and you don't have to like or condone someone to respect their humanity.
That's a nice way of putting it. That's probably better than how I would have. I probably would have pulled from like 15 different analogies and tried to make it all fit together, and it wouldn't have fit at all. That's just how my brain works. And that respect of like honoring somebody for who they are, as another person um, versus their personality, so to speak.
Mhm.
How does that for you in being a leader of the queer community? How does that like work out for you? Because obviously there's a lot of other queer leaders that obviously in the past you haven't like gotten along with, but how does at what point do you just say like, you know what, fuck it, like you let the personality embody the person versus like keeping it separate, kind of like the idea of like personal and business and personal, how like and 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 not, but instead of personal and business, it's personality and person.
I guess like so as as president of Columbia Pride, um, there have been a few times where there was one time it was after a meeting like already ended and we were just sort of like standing around and talking and someone, this cis white gay man, he brought up the um, IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
because and we all sort of like looked at each other, and I kind of looked at him, and I was like, "Wait, did you say?" And he was like, "Yeah," and I was like, "But why? Like, why? Why? Like, why do you want to be involved with like people who are committing mass genocides and are proud of it?" And he was like, "Well, because they're hot in a uniform," and it's like, whoa,
What the
that's such
heck?
that's ooh, like
Whoa.
that's an amount of privilege that I did not realize existed
Whoa.
for a second. Like I forgot that people are so privileged that like their physical
Wait.
perceptions of people matter more than like who someone is for a second. And so
Whoa. That is
I
intense.
had to deal with it obviously because um and so I basically he ended up leaving before I could say anything to him. But at the next meeting, I basically was like, as a reminder, if you are someone who supports people committing like mass crimes against humanity, you are not welcome in this space. You are welcome as a queer person, you are welcome as a person of color, as a disabled person, as whatever person you are. However, if you believe that people should be excused from committing horrible, horrible things because they are hot, then you don't realize the intersections between people. And you can either keep quiet and learn, or you can just not come back because it's not something we're going to tolerate. And so it's kind of like the discussion guidelines of like attack the opinion, not the person, you know?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
like I could talk to like a Republican and be like, I don't fucking like your president, dude. I don't. I don't. But I'm not gonna be like, because you're racist, I'm going to like misgender you, you know? Or
Yeah.
because you're homophobic, I'm gonna call you a racial slur or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can give you basic human respect while also calling for things because someone's race has nothing to do with their beliefs. Someone's gender has nothing to do with whatever it is. You
Right.
know?
Right. Yeah. And that's to say that, I mean, that's not to say that their opinion isn't informed by
Mm-hmm.
whatever identity that they have. So I kind of just want to like separate those two things, right? So like exactly what you're saying, like obviously their opinion
This is
Their
like a
opinion.
very big conversation.
Oh my gosh. So, yeah. So their opinion can be informed or molded by their identity. So, and in this case, we'll just use race. My opinion can be informed and molded by the fact that I am Asian,
Hmm.
right? Because an opinion being stated is just an opinion. It's not like a racial opinion. Like I don't know.
It's
I can't draw this distinction really well right now.
like you can acknowledge someone's humanity while also acknowledging the fact that they are a shitty person. Like those
Yeah.
things can exist. Like it's not. I feel like a lot of people, especially, they're kind of like, oh, this trans person said a racist thing, so I'm going to use the wrong pronouns. Like that's not how it works. You still have to use the correct pronouns, and you can do that while calling them out for whatever they did. You
Right.
can't strip away someone's humanity as a
Yeah.
punishment. Like that's not how it works.
Yeah. So, listeners, hopefully we did an okay job with explaining that. um, but another example could be like you could, so like you could love your parents, but at the same time hate them for,
Mhm.
uh, love and hate can exist simultaneously, um, right? And I think everybody can relate to that. Or even better, you can hate your siblings and still love them. That's a better example, honestly. Attack the opinion and the idea, or critique the idea, not the person. But it's definitely something that people need to train up on. Like
Mhm.
you can't you can't just like, woo, let me wave my wand, like, you
Yeah.
know, you can't just like go out there and be like Expelliarmus this like thing, and like out goes the weasel, you're like a pro now. Like it definitely takes a lot of training, as does everything. Like, okay, so I'm gonna take an example that Gary V uses. And he analogizes this with social media. So like, when people, so he goes around saying like, I hate it when people say like, oh, I don't want to learn social media. I can't learn social media. I'm just like, I just can't because XYZ, blah, 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 blah. But then he's like, well, you didn't know how to drive, but you had to learn how to drive, and you learned how to drive because you needed to learn how to drive. And that same thought process applies to pronouns. The same thing applies to being just a good person. Like, yeah, obviously you didn't grow up like training for this or practicing this, but like you can do it, and you're the only person that is really stopping yourself from being able to do this. So apply that to what we just said right now, what we were just talking about, being able to distinguish the idea from the person, because those are very two separate things. With that on the rise, like how do you that made no sense. But moving on to our next subject, um, what do you okay? So how do you define an ally for you?
Um,
Like, yeah, for you personally, and then maybe why don't you try to like give a generalistic definition?
so for me, an ally is someone who sees the humanity of people without letting their personal opinions get in the way. So, an example of that would be um, I have this I have this friend in Oklahoma, and they are a white person, like they are full-blooded Italian. However, they are a very good ally about racial stuff. Um,
Mm,
they themselves, they do the work. They don't make me explain things to them. If they don't understand something, then they put in the work to understand it by themselves. They're able to talk about race in a very nuanced way. Like, I can out of nowhere text them about some like abstract bullshit and they'll get it immediately. And I'm not saying you have to understand racial theory to be a good ally, but you kind of have to
Mm.
understand racial theory to be a good ally. um, so I guess it's just someone who like acknowledges and sees the humanity of people without
Mm.
letting personal things get in the way. Like, if someone is
Mm.
mad at me, if their first reaction is to call me a racial slur or a homophobic slur, then it's like, you were never an ally in the first place. You just wanted brownie
Mm.
points because that means you don't see me as who I am. You just
Right.
want to look good. Um, and then going off of that, it seems like a lot of people um, define allyship as someone who's like nice to minorities. Um, like a lot of self-proclaimed allies, they'll be like, "Oh yeah, like I care about the gays," but then like a gay person does something to upset them and they call them a slur, and it's like that
That
doesn't
doesn't
correlate.
correlate with each other.
Yeah, like you can't call
Yeah.
yourself an ally and then immediately attack someone's humanity. Like, that's not how it works.
Yeah. That wait, say that again. What is your definition? I liked your definition a lot because I have never put it in. I have never put it in those types of words. Like, yeah. What
So
is it?
for me, an ally is someone who can acknowledge someone else's humanity without letting their personal opinions get in the way.
Oh, that's what's up. I I really like that definition. Or that like yeah, that definition for lack of a better term right now. Because like it's flexible, you know? And I like flexible definitions. And when I say flexible, I'm not saying that like you can I mean, yes, you can always twist something the wrong way, but like it's flexible meaning it can apply to so many different like cases, so many scenarios, so many different contexts. And I that's definitely what I strive to do is I strive to make or strive to explain things with flexible definitions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
definitions that are both broad but very specific.
Yeah, yeah, and that's exactly. But yeah, and so like to even like go further with that. So one of my flexible definitions is what I use for self-love. Um, give your 2 cents, and anybody else who's listening, if you want to toss in your 2 cents, definitely for sure. And I would definitely think about it and try to come up with all the other ways that this your add-ons are not good add-ons. uh, because I do this with myself like every day. But anyways, my flexible definition for self-love is like self-love isn't what you see everywhere online. Like go get a manicure, go take a day at the spa, go work out for yourself, go take yourself out for dinner. Those are just general things, and there's a bunch more. Self-love is essentially you, the person, being able to project yourself as a third party, as another human being, and enter a relationship, a romantic relationship with that other version of you. So, for example, you know, uh, to kind of like not keep it so esoteric, is that like just imagine you're with your partner and um, and this partner, what do you do with this partner? You obviously you don't lie to them, you love them to the best, you do all these good things for them, and you try to not do all these bad things for them, right? And you want to keep your promises. And if your partner doesn't do that to you, you know how you would feel. You would feel like crap. and you would feel angry at your partner because they broke a promise to you, or they lied or something. um, and now just imagine that partner is actually yourself. So like, you know how your partner's going to react because your partner is essentially you. And so it's being able to, self-love is being able to treat yourself as your romantic partner, as if they were a living, breathing, physical human being next to you. um, and so that's my flexible definition of self-love. Because then you can apply that anywhere. You could be like, well, oh, if Daniel likes manicures, let's go get a manicure for Daniel. Let's go take Daniel to the swimming pool because he loves water. Anyways, enough of that rant. I liked your definition, honestly, because I've been trying to think of how to describe an ally and how to really be an ally, because and I know maybe you don't feel this way, but like, at least for me, I've encountered so many different varieties of people within the queer community, in terms of like how they define allyship. I don't know. It's such a like a subjective thing, you know, for a lot of people.
Yeah. I guess the reason why like I define it as someone who can acknowledge someone's humanity without letting personal things get in the way is just because like it's very broad in the sense that like you cannot fully acknowledge someone's humanity if you're not willing to fight for that person. Um,
Mm,
if like if I met someone and their prerequisite to acknowledging my humanity was, oh, you have to be nice to me, then it's like you're not an ally. You just want me to be nice to you. And you think that
mm,
I have to earn your allyship. That's not what being an ally is. That's you weaponizing my identity against me. And
mm,
that's shitty. Um, but if I met someone and we didn't necessarily get along and we like hated each other, but they still acknowledged my identities, they're an ally and they're still willing to fight for the communities that I'm a part of because it doesn't matter whether or not we're friends. And it shouldn't matter. Like at the end of the day, it should not matter whether or not I'm nice to you. If
mm,
I call you an asshole because you did some stupid, bigoted shit, then you need to take that and you need to self evaluate and you need to reflect and be like, okay, what did I do? How can I fix it? How can I try to amend whatever harm I caused? And how can I like use this information and challenge my own ideas? And then how do I stop myself from getting so defensive if I'm being called out for something? Um, because at the end of the day, like no one owes anyone kindness, especially if they're angry about
yeah,
injustice. Like
yeah,
I'm not gonna look Trump in the eye. Like if I sat down and had dinner with him, I'm not gonna be like kissing his feet, you know? Like I'm not gonna like be nice to him. But whether or
yeah,
not I'm nice to him shouldn't matter because we're both
right.
human beings. I'm not going to attack his humanity and he shouldn't attack my humanity. It doesn't matter how nice I am. I'm still a person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I feel that. And also because you are currently leading people, I feel like being that terminology can be, your definition can be applied to like the people that you are leading as well, or people who are involved in your groups, in your organizations, because like I feel like at some point there comes a threshold where like as a leader you just have to like, there's a game where you have to play, uh, and most of it is definitely some of it is definitely psychological and mental for your own personal being, but then some of it is also like actually the results are visible, and that's the idea of like, okay, so how am I going to lead this group? Do I do it in the way that I would like it to be led versus, okay, Like, or am I going to like cater towards the group? You know what I'm saying? And I feel like definitely at certain points when I was doing like ASO and stuff, on e-board and as president, it was just kind of like, I feel like I have to like cater. And yeah, do you feel like you have to cater a lot, especially with the intersectionalities that you're facing?
Yeah, I guess like sometimes I feel like there were a lot of times where I feel like wow, this would be a lot easier to do if I was the kind of person who was willing a way to like throw away my own morals for things. And like that sounds shady, but
Yeah.
like
Oh no, I get where you're coming from though. I totally get where
like
you're coming from though.
and it's like yeah, like especially at a school like Columbia, so many things would be easier if I was willing to throw away my morals, if I was willing to be like, okay, I'm going to play this game. But because of the kind of person I am and because of the position I'm in, I don't feel like it's responsible to throw away your morals, especially as a campus leader. Because and this sounds like up my own ass, but when you're a campus leader, like students look up to you for specific things. Like there is a reason why you're a campus leader. There's a reason why people are willing to come back every single week and listen to you talk about something for 2 hours. Like there's a reason why people come back, you know? And
Yeah.
so if you have that trust, if I have a trust of people in my hands, it would be irresponsible of me and it would be very bad of me to throw it away and be like, well, I need to play this game that the institution sets up. I feel like as a leader, it's your job to either stop the game or change the rules of the game
Hmm.
or just say that I'm not going to play at all and I'm not going to be a part of it because
Hmm.
I'm not going to sit around and make things easy for myself just because it would be easier. I would much rather have a hard time dealing with the school if it meant that I was fighting for students that look to me for a space on campus. If that means emailing the school back and forth for weeks on end, dealing with people giving me bullshit answers, that's fine. And if I
Hmm.
never see the results of it, that's fine because I'm setting up the foundation for someone else to continue on.
Right. Oh my gosh. What you just said is like gold. Setting up the foundation for someone else. Oh my goodness. And dude, man, not a lot of people have that kind of like foresight, or they don't. Maybe foresight's the wrong word, but like people don't think about that. Like
Yeah.
it doesn't have. It's like people are. You're so. People are not as selfless as you, Joyce. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to see too on campus. Like this in general, like I feel like a lot of people they look for leadership positions or they become leaders because they
Because
want to
it's
do
good
it
on
for
the resume.
themselves. Exactly. It looks good
Yeah,
on a
it's good on the
resume.
resume.
Uh,
Yep.
but like I don't necessarily care that it looks good on a resume. I care that
Yeah.
I'm impacting students. I care that I'm impacting real people. If I got in like huge trouble because I yelled at President Kim during a town hall meeting, okay, but I was standing
Hmm.
up for the fact that like the school mistreats trans students. I'm not going to
Yeah.
sit around and like be like, oh yeah, whatever. I'm not going to get in trouble with the president of our school. I don't give a shit that he's the president of the school. I pay his
Yeah.
salary. That's my tuition. Like, if I want to yell at him,
Facts.
I'm going to yell at him and he's going to listen. Because at the end of the day, students hold tons and tons of power. And I feel like a lot of student leaders, they don't realize that like their own influence, it comes from their organization. So if you're not fighting
Hmm.
for your general members, you don't deserve to be a campus leader.
Right. Damn. No, honestly, yeah. I think that's a really good thing to say, and I'm gonna tie it back to leadership, is that a lot of leadership is actually just interpersonal relationships, honestly, and how well you are with like being empathetic. Um, Obviously, you need to have the hard mechanical skills as to being a leader for sure. But I think a lot of the great qualities of a great leader are swept under the rug, and those ones uh tend to be like, having, it's all the soft skill stuff, like, and I think that translates to any kind of relationship too. People who are leaders regardless wherever they go. So
Yeah.
like that's just what I believe. I don't think that you need to be in a space where you have followers to be a leader. Um, Leader characteristic. Some people would disagree. Some people would say there's no point of being a leader if you don't have followers. Like, you know. But you know, yeah. Anyways, let's not go down that rabbit hole. Um, yeah. I Like I said, I think I totally feel where you're coming from. Totally, because it's the golden rule kind of a thing. Do unto others what you want done unto yourself. And if that can't be met, then you should kind of like definitely reevaluate your situation, romantically and non-romantically, for anybody
Mhm.
listening in. Um oh, yeah. Last little bit of leadership thing right now. Passing on the baton. Like, it's actually harder to pass the baton than actually doing the work yourself, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Um, right? Do you feel the same way? Is it just me, or do you feel the same way?
I feel like the two of us, we're very similar people where the two of us will just do everything. And it's not because we don't trust other people. It's just, I know that if I do it, it'll be done the way I want it done and it'll be up to my
Yeah,
standards. But I can't control
yeah,
the way other people do things. And
yeah.
so I think we're both very similar in that aspect. And that's why it's hard for us to pass on the baton. Because I look at other people and it's easy as hell for them to just be like, meh, 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 whatever. But like,
Okay, wait. I'm gonna elaborate on my piece because like, uh, I do kind of, I do feel similarly that like, not that I don't trust people, like I do trust people, but at the same time I don't trust people. I don't know how else to explain that, but that's I had to, okay, I had to, let me try to do myself justice, or anybody else who feels the same way. Like, so I trust people. If you're gonna tell me something, like you're like your parent just passed away or your grandparents just passed away and you have to go, or if you have, okay, that's too extreme. Let's just keep it to like that's too extreme. Like, um okay, like you have a big paper, a big project that you got to finish up, you know and you're going to do that. Like, I trust, like, I'm going to believe you. I trust you. Like, I'm going to believe what you give me, like, at face value, and I'm just going to let you do what you do, right? But then, like, let's say I'm delegating, right? And now that trust has different levels now, right? Like,
yeah.
like, it's just like, because again, back to what I was saying earlier, that leadership is like it's an interpersonal relationship, and so like, and when you are the delegator, you happen to know like who you're working with, and like you kind of know what their habits are, and like their methods are, and like, if they actually will follow through or not. And so it kind of comes down to like, do I trust you to like follow through? Uh, that's questionable, but I do trust you as like a person, like, you know? Yeah, yeah. That's the best way I can like put it into words right now. Like, I trust people, but I don't trust people if again, if I think that if I see habits or like consistency of not finishing something, then it's just like, okay, I'm just gonna probably try to do it myself. But yeah, I definitely do feel that we're very similar, and and it's definitely hard to pass the baton, and because like you just want like a certain level of execution, you know, or like
Yes.
quality. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing wrong with that. And this is what I hate too. Oh my gosh, gets on my nerves. When people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're such a Virgo for saying that." I'm like, "Stop." Like okay, just because Virgos are known for being like perfectionists doesn't mean that like no other sign feels the same way. Like clearly you're not a Virgo. You're like a Capricorn, you know? And it's just like, this ah yeah. Anyways, that's another rant for another day. I totally get you though. You just want to there's a level of like commitment and like a just like you, I have like a very like if someone calls himself a leader at any point in their life, um, I have like an expectation in my head that you need to meet. Like, if you're a leader and you're just going out willy nilly and not getting anything done, that's just one facet of my perception of what a leader needs to do. Like you're not really a leader in my eyes. You're just trying to start something, which is cool. That's fine, but like you're not really a leader in my eyes right yet, you know.
Yeah. I don't know.
But
I think it's funny that we're both so similar because we're not the same zodiac, but we're both earth signs. And
I
so
don't even know what that means, but
okay, so earth signs, we have a reputation of being very stubborn and very set in our ways. Um, we tend to be like the grounding people in other people's
uh-huh.
lives, very down to
Uh-huh.
earth. And so I feel like in a way it makes sense that like we have our ideas of how a leader is supposed to be and then how we
Mhm.
want our groups run. And for me, that's part of the reason why it's so difficult for me to quote unquote pass the baton because it's not like I don't trust y'all,
Yeah. Yeah.
but it's like, will you run this org? Even if you don't run it similarly to the way I do, will you run it to the best of your ability? Will you
Mhm.
truly and fully commit the same amount of time that I did, the same amount of effort? Like, this isn't a game. Like, you can't just
Yeah,
drop it.
it's not a game. It's
You
not.
can't just be like, oh, I don't feel like doing it. Like that's not a thing. You don't get
Yeah.
to not feel like doing something. Like you committed to this position, you're gonna
Facts.
go, you're gonna commit at least 4 or 5 hours a week to a single organization. And if you don't like it, sucks. You can wait until next year, have someone else in your position. But for now, you are the leader. You got to do your job. There's no such thing as not wanting to do it.
Yeah, man. Follow through. You have to follow through. You have to. No matter, it doesn't even like, if you had one person come into the meeting, I don't care. Like, you have to follow through. And like,
Exactly.
and that doesn't mean that you have to have like a step by step plan for every meeting, but like, you have to have some sort of plan that like you can
Exactly.
switch it up, you know?
Right. Like we've had ASO meetings where like not many people showed up and like maybe our original plan we were depending on a big group. Fine, we can throw it away, but we could do something else. We're not
Yeah.
gonna just cancel the meeting. Like unless absolutely no one showed up, we're gonna do something. Like
Yeah, yeah. And yeah, and I also think it goes back to like our thing of like just because okay, so let's say like we usually get like a general of like an average of 10 people. Just because only one person showed up this week doesn't mean that we shouldn't give them the quality that they deserve, you know? And like you can't just be like all the you can't be so reactive and depressed if what you didn't expect, what you wanted didn't come out. What you know, just because your expectation wasn't met doesn't mean that you get the luxury, the luxury. Notice how I said the luxury of being depressed in that moment. Um, you don't. It's just like I don't like if you're gonna like try to be a leader, then like there's or like uh, it doesn't have to be like a leader, but if you're like putting on an event or like there's a certain level of quality that I expect of people, and I think that's really because I went through ASO and all of that. But to get to my point earlier was that I really did feel that you guys backtrack. Um I also feel like when you're passing on the baton, it's also like a reflection how well you did too. It's like if how well they do could I mean obviously it's not 100% you, but like if you try to pass on values to like as like a big value, something that you thought was like integral to your organization onward and it doesn't come through next year and you kind of see it not come through, it's just like, oh man, fuck, I messed up. Like shit. Like, oh man, I sucked the balls as a leader.
Well, we talk about you a lot actually still.
What?
Yeah. You were, I'm like, no
Why?
joke, Daniel.
I'm
You
an
were like,
I'm a
you're like,
dinosaur.
no, no, you're like a legend. Like you're like an ASO legend. We were talking about you. We were saying like it's definitely not the same as when Daniel was here, because when Daniel was here, like there was always so many people and he was always so good with people. And he just had that thing about him that like made people want to come back. And he's naturally like a very good leader, a very good people person. And like I am the first to admit I am not the most welcoming person. People look at me and they're like, "Oh, she's a bitch," and I'm like, "Okay, that's fine. It's no big deal because it's true." But that's something that you have that I don't have, and that was something I was always thinking about this past year and like any other year that I was on eBoard. And so then we were just talking, and then Wes said something like, "But the people that are coming in, they don't know Daniel. They only know you. So for them, you're their Daniel." And I was like,
Boom! Oh my gosh! Yo,
and I was like, no, no, no,
give that.
whoa, whoa,
Where
whoa,
where's
whoa, whoa.
the where's the Oscars? Get this man an award.
I was like, wait a minute, wait. And then having that realization that like I remember so many things because I came in right at the cusp of Colombia changing everything basically. And so I
Yeah,
have
yeah,
vivid memories of old Colombia and the organizations in the office versus everyone else's perceptions of what Colombia is now. And I forget that not everyone remembers you and not everyone remembers MCA and not everyone remembers how things used to be. And so after
yeah.
that, I was like, that's why I'm always the only one stressing about certain things because I'm still trying to live up to your
To what it
legacy as
was.
president,
Oh
and I'm trying
man,
to live up
that's
to so many things. But the
man.
people that are coming in, these freshmen, they don't fucking know. They don't know like this old lore, this tea, this drama. They just know me, and then I'm like, oh shit.
Dude, I'm like really touched by that, like no lie, no lie. But at the same time, like fuck that shit, man. Fuck me. Like 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 man, you don't gotta I mean, that obviously you know that, but like like don't tie yourself down.
I
um
know, but like I just need you to know that we still talk
yeah.
about you a lot, and
That's
like
crazy that you still talk about me.
we also like we miss you a lot. Like
Oh.
we we're always like, oh, how can we get Daniel to come back here? Do you think Daniel will come to A square? Do you think? Uh,
I was actually thinking about it, and then I got offered this job, and then I was like, "Fuck, man, I gotta work weekends now." Like, damn.
damn.
But yeah, and then, but honestly, in October, like, I could probably make it out. I'm not even joking. I'll come through. I'll come through.
Good. We can get hot pot together finally.
Celebrate. Also, like, around the time when you did start on eBoard, um, yeah, I just felt like if I was there, I don't know. It's like a personal responsibility for sure. That I still handle to this day for myself. And obviously, I know that I shouldn't be. It's definitely terrible to do that, but I do. Um, and yeah, I felt like if I was helping lead the group at that time, things would have been things would have. I feel things would have sailed smoother.
I feel like if you had stayed, we would have ended up depending on you a lot. And then I know I at least would have felt really bad about it because
Hmm.
then what it feels like to have an e-board that just depends on you for everything, which
Yeah.
is fine, but also like it's not fine because we're
Yeah.
a whole group of people. It shouldn't just be you doing something, it should just be me doing something. And so
Yeah.
I do wish we had gotten more involved in stuff, but I think being forced to deal with everything by ourselves, like it made everyone realize exactly what e-board entailed.
Yeah, totally. Totally. I understand where you're coming from because I feel the same way. Like I wish that I okay, so to go back to what I was saying earlier, I do wish that I was still president, but I say that in the sense of where I am currently. If I was actually president when you guys were there, we still would have made we still would have made bank. I'm not gonna lie, we still would have made bank, but it would have been that type of relationship where I feel where I at that time if I was still there, for who I was at that time, I probably would have been like um trying to delegate a lot, but not being able to even follow through on my own delegation because of who I was at the time. So I think what you said is very true. Um, and yeah,
It's like it's definitely frustrating as like a president of things where this is something that always happens. I always and it's happened several times with like several e-boards and I always have to be the person to be like, okay, guys, stop joking around. We have to get this done. And I hate
yeah,
having to be that person because everyone is like laughing and having fun, and then I'm the only one just getting
right.
like annoyed.
Right. No, I feel that cuz then people are like, "Oh, like because they first meet you and they're like, "Oh, Joyce is really cool." She's like they have this perception of you, and then when you get into the workplace, like you have to be hard. Like you just have to be hard. Like you have to be unrelenting. And then they have like, "Oh, they associate Joyce when they first met you, fun, really cool at in this type of environment, but in this type of environment, it's like, oh, Joyce is like she's she's stubborn or like she's a hardhead and like she's too serious. And then like because and for some odd reason, people start thinking that's the real you. And I was just like, um, no, that's not. I actually hate being that person, but I have to be.
Exactly. Like someone has to be, or else nothing will get done. And
Yeah.
it's just I don't know. It's annoying that like it's annoying that we have to fill those roles because you would think that like at a certain age you would realize that there's a place and time to have fun and that
Yeah.
place and time is not an e-board meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, it's I feel like that's another thing a lot of people don't understand, like you have to make hard decisions as a leader. Like, it's not fun being the asshole, but someone has to be.
Right, right. And also to your point is that like just because we're coming down on hard decisions doesn't mean that like uh if we put people and responsibility on a scale, it's like a 51-49 kind of a thing. It's not like all responsibility. When I'm in the work zone, it doesn't mean that like I'm 100% yo, people, feelings, empathy don't matter right now. It's about responsibility and duty and getting our work done. It's not, I am definitely not like that at all. And I know you're not like that at all. You have too much of a soft heart for that, even though everybody thinks you have, even though everybody thinks you have like a heart of stone. I'm dead serious, man. People feel that they think you have a heart of stone, but you actually don't. It's hard to see that though. I don't know why people just don't get it. I don't, I don't know, Joyce.
I think it's easier for people to see everyone as a two-dimensional person, you know?
Yes. Mm.
When I feel like oh, not everyone has reached a point where they can easily separate things the way that we can separate things. Like I can like if I was on like a board with you and I saw you make like hard or difficult decisions, or I watched you like quote unquote like do like something like harsh or whatever, I wouldn't associate that with you as a person. I would be like, this is what he has to do as a leader, and that's fine.
Mhm.
That doesn't speak to who he is as a person. I can still get lit with you on Saturday night, but that doesn't change the fact that like we have to like get down to business during e-board meetings or whatever. And I feel like
Yeah.
people have a hard time separating that. Like I'm lucky with board that like sometimes even if we get off track, we can get back pretty quickly. And like we
Right.
hang out a lot outside of e-board. Like we'll go get food together, like and like just hanging out as friends.
Yeah.
And we sometimes we'll talk about ASO, sometimes we won't, and it's not a big deal. But like that's I know that like a lot of other student leaders like they're not that lucky.
Yeah.
Like I remember when Rogelia was still here, and he was surprised that the ASOE board was like still in the office at like 9 o'clock because I don't even fucking remember what we were talking about. I think it was either about Halloween. I think it was about Halloween because it was
Uh-huh.
the first year we did the murder mystery, and
Oh
he
yeah.
was like, "I'm so surprised that you guys are still here. Like, it's amazing, like how much dedication you guys have to this." And I was like, what do you mean? Because I was under the impression this was just like basic, like
Normal.
everyone did this. This was the level of commitment everyone had to. And then he told me
Yeah.
some tea, and I was like, fuck. And like, I just keep forgetting that not everyone views e-board responsibilities the same way that I view e-board responsibilities. And I feel like
Yeah.
ASO has been lucky that like most of us view e-board the same way, that we all responsible, we all take it very, very seriously. Like it's I think it's funny that it's the Asian e-board that does this, like I think that's hilarious that it's the Asian e-board
Oh my
that is
goodness.
like
Yeah.
so hard-headed about it. But I think we're lucky that we all take it very, very like seriously.
Yeah, totally. I think that's also been definitely ASO culture for a long time. Like even before I was on eBoard, like I I don't know how to quantify it at all, but like I feel like every subsequent e-board before ours like did that too. Like I mean, yeah, there's always ups and downs, but like it's always like we they did that. We did that, you know. And we had that kind of culture, and I'm pretty sure, you know, the culture that you have going on is open arms, open space, like everybody's welcome, and like yeah, I think that's it's so generational. Like it's so weird. It's so weird to say it's generational because literally we're all like 2 years apart from each other. But like it's so generational. Like there's no other way to to really like quantify that level of culture within ASO right now. And and I feel like every president that has come since has tried to uphold that generational culture. It's so uh in this sense because the culture isn't like super toxic, like it's amazing. Uh but obviously if there ever does come a time where it kind of like, you know, goes down the wrong path, then yeah, that's bad. But that hasn't happened yet. And I don't think it will happen because I feel like everybody who has been president has been able to like identify like the good people,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you know.
But I think you're doing an amazing job, honestly, getting shit done. Like I said, when you guys got Will J, like, yo, it don't matter. I don't really care for Will J, but it's dope that you got Will J. You know,
Thank you.
like legit. I'm not gonna lie, because I know he's pretty famous in terms of like Asian tubers. You know,
Okay, well, where can we find you?
Oh God, my all of my handles are in French.
In
But you can
French.
find like
Oh
my
yeah.
usernames and stuff.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but I can be found on Instagram and Twitter, um, and TikTok. Haha. um, I've been making TikTok. It's fun. That's been a way for me to like relieve stress and just like have fun because I don't have any like there's nothing like school related tied to TikTok. That's just me having fun and fucking around and goofing off,
Yeah.
which is good. That's very good for mental health to have that. Um, but yeah, I can like send you my
Or
usernames because
yeah. Send me the usernames. How do you say them right here? Just so people don't
um
miss it.
God, I might butcher it because I haven't spoken French in a while. But it's Reine Regnon. It means reigning queen in French.
okay. Dude, I have to say that I thought it was always like reignorate or something.
I always ask people how they pronounce it, and it's really funny. Like my cousin, Crystal, she's my 14-year-old cousin that I post about a lot. She pronounces it regenerate, and so so she'll be like
That
Miss
sounds so
Regenerate.
bad.
But no, a lot of people will mispronounce it or they don't know how to pronounce it, which like I don't blame them because it's French and it's funny looking and it looks confusing. So
Yeah, yeah. Wait, would you say that was on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn?
no, Twitter.
Oh, Twitter. Okay, cool, cool. Also, I'll just throw this out there because you didn't yet, but you could also find Joyce at TNII. That is her. That that is her literature Instagram handle.
Mm-hmm.
So literary Instagram handle where they put their literary art. Um, Go check it out. I think the first 7 pieces you did dictionary colonizers, which is really dope.
Yeah.
And yeah, we also did an audio version of that as well. That's on my SoundCloud. That's Joyce speaking. It's like a whole uh listen to it with your eyes closed. It'll take you on a world. It really is kind of like a ride, honestly. Everyone is a different story. It takes you to a different place. Um But yeah, you can find me, if you don't know me already, I'm TabooThao. You can find me on everything, meaning all these platforms called SoundCloud, Spotify, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn. I already said that one, I think. And I know I always forget one other platform, but you can find me on all those platforms at TabooThao. And yeah, thank you all for listening. Honestly, if you all made it to the end of this episode, I thank you. And yeah, thanks for listening. Thanks for being on the podcast, Joyce.
Yeah.